Yo, 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 what is going on, RoK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are going to be touching on what I think is a very important topic. Rogue players, and by extension, some rogue alliances will sprinkle a little bit there, but we're going to explain how you can efficiently and effectively solve, remedy, address that challenge, that hurdle of rogue players. And we're going to give you a few tips on how to do that, along with also touching on some things that might be a little unorthodox from what most may come to hear and see. As always, before we get started, if you enjoy the content, make sure you sub, like, ring the notification bell, and of course, if you want to join and be a part of our conversation, hit up the Discord link in the pinned comment description down below. Okay, so first things first is that when we are looking to address rogue players, let's just start off with what exactly defines a rogue player. Now, there's really two things in my mind. One is that they're just in a kingdom to do nothing but attack, kill people, pillage, attack cities, attack marches, attack farmers. Don't really care, right? They just want to fight. War PvP, like that's their thing. The second part is that you can also define a rogue player by just someone who is not on board for going along with the direction that the kingdom is going in. Now, this can at times be by verbal extension or by physical extension, where they're attacking. Verbal being maybe they're just really mean. Maybe they just use a lot of bad words, don't really have a filter, and that's just their default way of going about talking and communicating with people, right? They're more of a nuisance, kind of a constant troublemaker, thorn in the side, and the overarching picture is that they just don't care, want to kind of go along with the direction that the kingdom's going. Maybe they don't abide by policies, maybe they're constantly breaking rules, right? This is another way you can define a rogue player and or players. And so being able to efficiently, because the thing about rogue players is that really, when you're trying to address a rogue player, the hope is that they'll just stop, right? Like you're trying to think about what are ways that we can resolve these situations of players that are just going around. And oftentimes what I like to try and do first and foremost is have a conversation. This is something I think is really important because you need to find out, one, are they just like so far off the deep end, or just more so, are they in a position where mentally they just don't care what anyone says, they don't want to listen to anyone, this is just the way they like to play the game, and no one's ever going to change that. That's really what you have to find out. You need to find out if it is just 100% going to be this way and nothing you can say, you can do, is ever going to change that. Then you kind of go into, protocol mode at that point. Otherwise, what I have come to find out as someone who proactively reaches out to people that you would classify as rogues is sometimes it's just having a conversation with them. There's been moments where I've reached out to rogue players who just didn't quite understand the way that the kingdom was doing something specific and needed clarification, or better yet, the clarification that I provided helped them come to a better understanding that actually stopped the behavior. Other times it was them assuming that something was being done in a mischievous or ill-intended way, and just explaining the process and why we went about doing things that way because I reached out and had a conversation and was willing to talk to them, even though, contrary to popular belief or popular opinion, right, the majority of people in said kingdom did not want to. And that often happens where you're in a situation and public opinion can just really take over, especially when you're getting into the territory of how do you problem solve and troubleshoot rogue players and sometimes alliances. But often what I try to do is to reach out and have a conversation. Start off by asking, hey, why are you going rogue, right? Or why are you attacking, right? Try not to avoid using the word rogue. Because mentally, psychologically, that might come across negative to them and already start you off on a bad foot. So I think the word choices we use is really important as well. But you reach out, you ask them, why are you attacking? What's happening? Was there something that happened? Would you be able to explain the situation to me? Are you okay with getting into a voice call? That's something I really push for, being able to do those things so you can have a conversation and a discussion to really figure out what is that root cause, right? Really get down, kind of peel the onions back, the layers back, break it down, and find out why are they doing what they're doing. And once you can kind of figure out that, then you can go from there and say, okay, cool, this is actually something fixable, it's solvable, and now we just have to kind of take those next steps, and then you kind of get into point two, right, which is solvable. Let me kind of just do point 2A, 2B. If you come across something that is solvable, there's two things here that really can happen. One, it can be solvable realistically, and then it can be solvable unrealistically. The realistic solve is that, yeah, you're able to have a conversation, explain things, really sell them on, hey, this is a great kingdom to be a part of. Here's why. This is why we do things the way we are. And trying to, maybe get them to a point where they'll understand and maybe even at minimum respect the way that the kingdom is operating and running, and they can at least visualize or acknowledge the benefits. And maybe that may help. Then you have the unrealistic, and that's just one example of one way to approach for 2A. 2B is it's unrealistic, where they want changes to happen, and maybe that's why they're fighting. Maybe that's why they're constantly attacking. And then it becomes kind of being a held hostage, and that's not really a position you want to be in. And that kind of leads to where we go down the path of number 3, which is that, and I think I'm just randomly saying numbers at this point, but once we get to number 3, which is pretty much where, or maybe 2C if you want to call it that, which would be more of the unsolvable. So you already know nothing's going to change, nothing's going to happen. Through having a discussion, having a conversation, you have found out that this player just is going to do this no matter what, right? Or this players, alliances are just going to do this no matter what. So then now it's time to start putting your action plan in place. And from here, this is where it kind of gets, I don't know what I want to say fun, but it gets to that point where you now have to be very unified and united in the way that your kingdom approaches dealing with rogues. And this is pretty much what I have always felt is the make or break, right? When you have rogue players in your kingdom, you have to truly be united. Doesn't mean that every single alliance has to, but at least the top set of alliances have to. And that could be your top 10, your top 15, your top 20, right? Basically anyone that has access to an additional zone is how I would like to view it. And I'm going to explain why I say that here in a moment. Before we do that, by being united, this allows for everyone to be on the same page. It means you guys are going to action things the same way, you're going to mail things the same way, and you're going to have a united front and effort in addressing and dealing with any rogue players. So here's a few things that you can do. Now, some of these I'm going to start off with the basics, and then we'll kind of develop into there. So to start, right, I think the most obvious one is being able to take advantage of your LT, and then going in and doing your imprison, right? So this would be your, skill. So we go skill here for imprison, right? Lock the location of a single governor's city, disabling city teleport for 10 minutes, cannot target your own alliance's members or kings from other kingdoms. So this would be the first one, and essentially, this is pretty much just locking you down so you can hit them with multiple rallies. And so I think that's an important one. And then after that, one of the other things that you can do is you can set 8-hour rallies on that. So being able to go and find the city, set a rally, even if it's like a 1-troop 8-hour rally, really what you're doing for that is you're making sure that you're constantly tracking the said player. Because if you have an 8-hour rally on them, no matter where they go, you're always going to have their updated chords, right? So that would be number 2, is always have someone. And the best way to do this is to set a team up, find out what their hours are that they're typically on, so you can always have someone setting an 8-hour rally on them, and then you won't lose track. The next thing here is monitoring, like let's say you don't. Like let's say you're just having to find them, right? You don't know where they are. The easiest way to do this, right, is what I would refer to as using the book method, right? So, for example, you zoom in far enough, right, until you can see a city name. So, right, so you would go here like this, and then basically what you're going to do is you're going to start off by looking at the perimeter, and then from there, you're pretty much just going to have to single like this. This is like really what you have to do, right? If you don't know where someone is, you pretty much have to kind of go, you know, inch by inch. And what you do is you make sure you stay along the same pan, right? So you can see here 299 is where I'm at. And if I scroll down, right, so I can see here to this tree. So then I'll put the tree up there, and you see it's about 5 spaces. Sorry, that's about 15? About 15 spaces, right, is what I have on my visual pan here for how close I have to be in order to see a city. So what you would do is you would grab a few people, you assign one person to each of the provinces, and you just have them do the book method, left to right, top down, and then doing that, right? Even if you want to put multiple people, you could put 2 people for zone 1, zone 2, 1 for zone 3, and then you just have them basically each start on the opposite ends, right? So you'd start here at the corner of this zone 1 province, and then here on this side of the zone 1 province on opposite ends, and you basically meet in the middle. These are efficient ways to go about finding, and once you find, you set that 8-hour rally, and then now you're off to tracking. Again, it is a little work, but it will help. Now, usually if they're rogue, I mean, this is the thing to understand. If they're rogue, I mean, unless they're going around attacking very small, inactive alliances where you're probably not going to get a report from someone that soon, right? If they attack someone who's in a stronger alliance, you're probably going to get an immediate report and find out their location. So really, you can only kind of stay hidden or in the shadows for so long. Especially, again, if you have an organized, well-structured kingdom where you have, a cohesive effort that's being made. And then we have a few of the other things here, right? So this kind of gets into 3 more tips that I'll give. One is once you find their name, and I'll just give an example, right? If I kind of scroll through here. Once you find their name, one thing you can do, especially if you want to be on touch with, or I guess up to date with any name changes, right, is you can message the player. Honestly, a dot is fine. Sometimes what I'll even do is, let's say this is the person's name now, but they changed it. I'll write the name in. I'll message them and write the name. And that way I have it as a marker. In addition, right, you can also, which is another thing, you can actually go in and block. This is another big thing that I recommend doing. Why do I say this? Because when you're doing the 8-hour rallies, right, you're constantly, because when you're doing the 8-hour rally tracking, unless they have replenished troops all the time, and they're spending or something, right, then yeah, of course you're going to go and rally them. You'll do organized efforts with your rally leaders. You guys will find times where you can just go around and hunt the player and just hit them with a bunch of rallies, whether you do it once a day or once every other day, however often, right, depending on how quickly they're replenishing, so you can keep that constant pressure up. That's something obviously to do from that, because you have to know the location before you can go and do. But another part, right, that's the physical. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start putting psychological pressure on the rogue players. You alienate them, you isolate them away from kingdom, right? You basically put them on an island like Gilligan. And what I mean by that is you'd go and you'd block, right? So it says blocking this person means you will no longer receive messages from them on any channel. That means you're not going to get a DM from them. You're not going to see any messages from them posted in public chats. And that's really what you want to do, right? You basically get every single active player to block this person. So that way you don't talk to them. You don't see them. They're basically an invisible ghost. And the only time anyone ever addresses it would be, your response team, so to speak, that you have. But that's really what you have to do. And it's an accumulative effect. So not only are you constantly putting the pressure of attacking them, tracking them, they always have a rally on them, but now no one talks to them, right? Like you've basically given them the dunce hand and put them in the corner. That's a form of psychological pressure where for rogues, oftentimes they feed off of the drama. They feed off of being able to read chat, engage with people. I cannot tell you how efficiently this has worked for me when I've been in kingdoms not only in RoK but other games, where we've applied these things and I've directed our groups to do such, and it works more often than not. Because that's something, right? It's like that attention craving, and it's not to say that every single rogue player or someone that may be rogue feeds off of, but more often than not they do. And I think that's something really important.
With the couches.
Oh, I just moved them.
Okay.
I'll move them back.
Right now.
I got it.
Now.
I'll move back.
Get off of that.
Okay, totally. I know. They're yelling at me. But anyways, since pretty much we're done, and she came in at the perfect time, that's pretty much the last thing, is just making sure you're doing those things, sending out synchronized mails, announcements, making sure everyone's on board so you know what to do. And that's, again, only if everything just goes to shiitake mushrooms and you just know this is what you have to do to address them in a more direct way when discussion breaks down, or you just find out what side of the fence that they really stand on. With that being said, that is pretty much it for me. I would love to hear your thoughts if you are in a kingdom or a server where you guys have applied different tactics. Again, I think these are pretty thorough on ways to go about setting it up, but I may not have covered everything. And I would love to hear if anyone out there has done different things, or you've added on or maybe done some modifications to something I mentioned where you have found success in addressing and dealing with rogues. With that finally being said, again, that's all I got. So I hope you guys enjoy. I hope this helps out any kingdoms now, currently going through this, maybe something just to kind of prevent in the future. And my last pro tip I'll give you is having a rapid response team or some type of team set up earlier rather than later can actually really help addressing those things before they sometimes even become or come to fruition. All right, that's it. Until next time, we'll catch you later. Peace.